Welcome back, True Seeker. CNN today, Tuesday, March 12th, 2024, has an interesting story if you scroll a little ways down on their front page. And as you can see, it says, "The truth behind those white streaks trailing behind jets in the sky." And yes, I am going to be holding the mic. I think I'm going back to the old mic. Yes, I got the new mic last week, and so far, lots of negative feedback on the new mic, and I am not happy with the new mic at all. I don't know if I got a default or a bad version of it, or if it's just not right for this room. So I think for the time being, we're going back to the old mic. Anyhow, CNN's got up this article, "The Truth Behind Those White Streaks Trailing Behind Jets in the Sky." And we're going to read this article, and then we're going to look at why they're addressing this today. There were a number of stories like this back around the time I'd say 2013. A lot of people are starting to notice seemingly more white streaks in the sky. It's been going on for over a decade now where those streaks have become commonplace. So we're going to read this article, and then we're going to look at a similar article that they published in 2018 about how this could be a way to stop climate change by dimming the skies. Anyhow, this is today's article, March 12th, 2024, CNN. Says, "We've all seen those white streaks trailing behind jets, creating stripes against the blue sky. The lines are called contrails." Love how it starts with con. "Short for condensation trails, and they appear when water vapor condenses and freezes around the exhaust from an aircraft, according to the University Corporation for Atmospheric Research. At least that's what science says. In recent years, a growing number of people believe that these contrails are actually chemtrails, a well-established conspiracy theory asserting that these trails aren't made from condensation at all, but are instead chemtrails being sprayed by the government. Though the theory may sound far-fetched to some, chemtrails have become a common conspiracy both in the US and around the world, despite evidence to the contrary." What is the chemtrails conspiracy theory? The chemtrails idea has been around since 1996 and is largely rooted in an Air Force research paper from the same year, "Weather as a Force Multiplier: Owning the Weather in 2025." It outlines a future modification system to achieve military objectives using aerospace forces and does not reflect current military policy, practice, or capability, the Environmental Protection Agency has stated. At its most basic, the chemtrails conspiracy theory posts that contrails are not created by water vapor at all, but instead are a sign that the government, the wealthy, or some mix of the two is secreting toxic chemicals into the air, creating these white lines. Ideas about the purpose of these supposed toxic chemtrails vary. Some believe the chemicals are being used to poison humanity. Others say it's for mind control, and some think it's a way for the government to control the weather. "There's no single official version of the theory," said Xijia Zhao, a PhD candidate at the University of California, Berkeley, who conducted a 2021 study exploring the chemtrails conspiracy theory and interviewing 20 believers and former believers. Instead, individuals pick and choose aspects that resonate with them, mixing in personal interpretations or selectively adopting parts of the theory. How did the chemtrails conspiracy theory take off? The idea that the government is spraying humanity with chemicals isn't completely without base. During the Cold War, the British government conducted more than 750 mock chemical warfare attacks on the general public, according to researchers. This subjected hundreds of thousands of people to zinc cadmium sulfide, a chemical chosen due to its small size. It's similar to that of germs, and because it glows under ultraviolet light, making it easy to trace. The chemical was thought to be non-toxic at the time, though repeated exposure could be cancerous. The U.S. did the same in the 1950s and 1960s, using the chemical as a tracer to test the dispersion of biological weapons. Though these tests were decades ago, The theory has flourished, so much so that in 2016, the EPA published a 14-page document explaining contrails, outlining the chemicals used by the Air Force, and attempting to dispute the conspiracy. In 2021, a Facebook post went viral claiming that President Joe Biden manipulated the weather through chemtrails and caused Texas's week-long deep freeze that February, with hundreds of people engaging with the message. I'll remind you that we had that Valentine's Day circled months in advance for extreme weather and power outages, all because of a number of things. Klaus Schwab, the Public Enemy album that showed Arizona on the cover. Arizona's the Valentine's Day state. Valentine's Day is 14/2, and that album came out 142 days earlier. It was called What You Gonna Do When the Grid Goes Down. Anyway, but by the way, that album was also released on September 25th, which was the anniversary of JFK giving his weather control speech about the future of weather control, and that was way back in 1961. Moving on X, thousands of people follow accounts dedicated to tracking and posting proof of these chemtrails. One 2017 study, which had a nationally representative sample of 1,000 people, found that about 10% of Americans believe the conspiracy completely, while upwards of 30% of Americans at least found it somewhat true. Belief in conspiracies is often traced back to skepticism of authority figures, Zhao said, and social media has also had a role in magnifying the problem. Social media's algorithmic structure means people see information that reinforces their existing beliefs. Ex-believers interviewed attributed their ongoing belief in part to the sheer amount of pro-conspiracy information on their social media feeds, said Coy Cheshire, a professor at UC Berkeley studying social psychology who was also involved in the study with Zhao. Scientific evidence debunking the theories simply wouldn't make it into their feeds or in their social groups. Even if it did, other believers will only reinforce the theory. Now, talking about this paragraph in 2024 like that's very disingenuous because they're probably talking about what was going on in, say, between 2013 and 16. For the last 7 years, it hasn't been that way. Probably the only thing these people are getting in their feed are the mainstream sources. The malleable nature of the conspiracy theory helps give it strength, said Cheshire. As some believers told us, the power of the conspiracy is that it can be adjusted to fit any new information since the smoking gun evidence never seems to come, Cheshire said. For example, even if believers are not sure that the so-called chemtrails are actually being used for population control, the narrative can easily shift to weather manipulation and climate change without requiring any new information or evidence. There's also the simple fact that we can see the contrails with our own eyes. Their visibility and presence in everyday life helps draw even more interest to the theory, Zhao added. Chemtrails have been the most interesting conspiracy because it's right in front of our face and we still choose to ignore it, one believer told Zhao and Cheshire. Though the theory may seem silly to some, the underlying concerns of the believers come from legitimate societal and environmental issues that warrant attention, Zhao said. Distrust in the government, concerns about environmental issues, or even struggles with chronic illnesses can all lend credibility to the chemtrails theory, suggesting that something else is causing these societal issues. Are chemtrails real? Here's what experts have said. Scientists have said there is no evidence for the existence of chemtrails. Even if there was a government conspiracy at work in aircraft contrails, such a large-scale program would be difficult to cover up given the amount of people who would be necessary for operation, Harvard researchers noted. Around the world, scientists have conducted investigations debunking the chemtrails conspiracy theory, describing the evidence of contrails and their variances at length. Even Edward Snowden, the whistleblower who leaked classified information from the National Security Agency, has stated that chemtrails are not a thing. Again, Edward Snowden, controlled opposition. Every story by the numbers. Still, believers are not convinced. Belief in the theory has become so strong that meteorologists around the world have reported an uptick in harassment and threats, usually after extreme weather, particularly from conspiracy theorists accusing them of hiding information. The collective, like Hurricane Hillary on Bill Clinton's birthday that was way overblown. The collective agreement within these communities often overpowers the national dissent of scientists, Zhao said. This makes it exceedingly difficult for factual corrections to alter these deeply entrenched beliefs. Okay, again, just this is so annoying because unless you're blind, you've all seen the days where the sky's blue and then it becomes a tic-tac-toe pattern, and then the tic-tac-toe pattern doesn't disappear like contrails used to. When I was growing up as a kid playing outside, we'd say, oh, look at that, the jet flew over, and then we'd watch shortly after that contrail just disappear. But these things, they spread out over the sky, and the next thing you know, there is no blue sky. It's gray haze. They did it to us all fall and winter out here in central Washington. Normally we have blue skies out here east of the mountains. It's not like the western part of the state that's always rainy and green and wet. It's high desert. But not this whole winter. Anytime we got one break in the blue, it was nothing but tic-tac-toe patterns and then gray haze in no time. And we've all been witnessing these things, those of us whose eyes are open, for more than the last decade. I love how they put out this article as we approach 2025, that infamous year. And they live. They're going to have control of the world by 2025. In 96, a report about using military technology to have full control over the weather by 2025. Okay. So, again, they're going after this huge conspiracy theory today on the 12th day of the third month, 12/3. Of course, conspiracies 123 in Gematria. I want to go back to this CNN article from 2018, Dimming the Sun, the answer to global warming. We covered this back then when it was new, and I'm already going, man, that was over 5 years ago now. Scientists are proposing an ingenious but as yet unproven way to tackle climate change, spraying sun-dimming chemicals into the Earth's atmosphere. The research by scientists at Harvard and Yale universities, published in the journal Environmental Research Letters, proposes using a technique known as stratospheric aerosol injection, which they say could cut the rate of global warming in half. Again, you've heard Bill Gates talk about things like this before, Mr. Getting emissions down to zero, and he talked about it well before 2018. The technique would involve spraying large amounts of sulfate particles into the Earth's lower stratosphere at altitudes as high as 12 miles. The scientists, as high as 12 miles. Interesting. What day did CNN choose to publish their article on the 12th of the month? The scientists proposed delivering the sulfates with specially designed high-altitude aircraft, balloons, or large naval-style guns. Despite the technology being undeveloped and with no existing aircraft suitable for adaptation, the researchers say that developing a new purpose-built tanker with substantial payload capabilities would neither be technologically difficult nor prohibitively expensive. They estimate the total cost of launching a hypothetical system in 15 years' time at around $3.5 billion, with running costs of $2.25 billion per year over a 15-year period. So again, that's well within, even the U.S. military budget alone. That's feasible within Bill Gates' own budget. You know what I mean? The report does not, however, acknowledge that the technique is purely hypothetical. We make no judgment about the desirability of SAI, the report states. We simply show that a hypothetical deployment program commencing 15 years hence, while both highly uncertain and ambitious, would indeed be technically possible from an engineering perspective. It would also be remarkably inexpensive. Okay? So again, they just told you that in the article they say this is definitely not happening. It's still 15 years out, but it wouldn't be that hard to set up essentially right now. It'd be relatively inexpensive and easy. We pretty much already have all the stuff. Not to mention you got the Dane Wingingtons of the world who've put out a lot of information on this subject, and they've shown some very curious jumbo jets that just have chemical holding tanks inside of them. And sure, they could be used for other chemicals, but it looks like these kind of things already do exist is the point. The researchers also acknowledge potential risks. Coordination between multiple countries in both hemispheres would be required, and stratospheric aerosol injection techniques could jeopardize crop yields, lead to droughts, or cause extreme weather. The proposals also don't address the issue of rising greenhouse gas emissions, which are a leading cause of global warming. And despite the conviction of the report's authors, other experts were skeptical. From the point of view of climate economics, solar radiation management is still a much worse solution than greenhouse gas emissions. More costly and much more risky over the long run, said Philippe Thalman of the École Polytechnique Fédérale de something French, an expert in the economics of climate change. Don't forget Paris, France equals climate change in Gematria. Of course, you got the Paris Accords. And let's not forget Society of Jesus equates to the same thing. You got the first Jesuit Pope, who's big on that climate change. David Archer of the Department of Geophysical Science at the University of Chicago said the problem with engineering climate in this way is that it's only a temporary band-aid covering a problem that will persist essentially forever, actually hundreds of thousands of years for fossil fuel CO2 to finally go away naturally. It will be tempting to continue to procrastinate on cleaning up our energy system, but we'd be leaving the planet on a form of life support. If a future generation failed to pay their climate bill, they would get all of our warming all at once. So again, I mean, in this article, they act like, it's just an idea. It's many years away, but it's inexpensive and not that hard to implement. Okay. To me, that's the key takeaway from the article, especially when you pay attention to what's going on in the skies. I mean, they're talking about blocking out the sunlight. Well, I've been witnessing that literally for a long time. And this is probably or maybe the best or worst, depending on how you look at it, example out here in Washington State, just this past fall and winter. I mean, literally, anytime that we got to see blue sky, it was tic-tac-toe patterns just like that. And then next thing you know, the whole sky is just gray. Gray, gray, gray. And you can watch it happen. You watch how it starts as a fine white line and then it spreads out. It just keeps spreading out until there's no blue sky. Yeah, that did not happen when I was a child. I grew up in Portland. We got the airport right there, military base right there. Jets were always flying between the airport and seemingly Mount Hood. You'd watch them take off. You'd hear the big noise. You'd see the white trail. It would slowly just go away. Never once did it disperse out and knock out the whole blue sky for the day. That never happened. Never saw that as a kid. We would have noticed that. We were outside all the time playing. And I mean, look at these flight patterns too that you just see these tic-tac-toe patterns. It's like, well, where's the airport? Were all the pilots lost again today? I mean, come on. Yeah, I don't think we got the truth in this article. I think this is misleading right here. The truth. Nope, don't think so. And let's not forget, weather warfare first admitted to with the Lynmouth flood on the Jesuit order's birthday, August 15th, 1952, by the Royal Air Force. I find it funny that they chose a photo from London in light of the first admitted act of weather warfare coming from the Royal Air Force. That's where London is. Go figure. But yeah, it is maddening too how people don't even notice. They don't even notice. I'd say 90% of Americans don't even notice what's going on up in the sky. Just completely oblivious. But yeah, addressing the conspiracy on 12/3. And then also noteworthy, today has 39 date numerology. Contrails equates to 39. So fitting day to say it's just contrails, what we've always heard. Just contrails. So yeah, if Mr. Zhao's out there, if you can explain to me why we all witness the same phenomenon, the tic-tac-toe patterns, and then the sky's grayed out. I mean, it sounds like it's just supposed to disperse. It doesn't sound like the contrail is supposed to change the weather. And say, I mean, nowhere in the. That's what's just annoying about this article. It's just like, okay, I mean, this article just defies. This article's for the blind. Where's the commentary on how all across the world people are noticing the same thing, that their blue sky disappears when they get the tic-tac-toe patterns? Seems to tie in perfectly with this one right here, dimming the sun. Yeah. They do. I don't know if they put any truth into that article, but sometimes they do small real reveals of the truth. The only thing I've seen that's been true in the media with CNN's coverage consistently, uh, for over a decade, they've been consistently telling the truth about magic mushrooms. It's the only thing I ever see that CNN covers that's true and factual. They talk about how magic mushrooms can be so helpful for people's behavioral disorders, and that's if they're used appropriately. That's the only thing I ever see CNN report on with facts. Yeah, that Don't Look Up movie, indeed, indeed. All right, we'll leave it there for now, True Seeker. Just wanted to document CNN taking on this issue. I haven't seen them do it for quite a while, so I thought, And you know what else is noteworthy, I suppose, in light of the original act of weather warfare being admitted to on the Jesuit order's birthday. Again, that was back in August 15th, 1952. This year will be the 72nd anniversary of that. And today's the 72nd day of the year. And of course, Jesuit order equals 72. Just like how we got the first Jesuit Pope, Pope Francis, on the 72nd day of the year in 2013. Yeah, that's what I covered, Mr. Glory Boy. That was the point I was making. That on 12/3, they addressed this. So, all right, we'll leave it there for now, True Seeker, and until next time.